As in every shonen-style series, the protagonist always goes through several situations in which their power level evolves. With Naruto, it was no different, as he eventually became one of the most powerful ninjas in the world, in addition to becoming the 7th Hokage. But speaking specifically about his power, at what point did Naruto reach the Kage level? That's exactly what we're going to talk about today. To determine precisely when Naruto reached that level, it's best to trace a chronological line of his power evolution. Naruto is a character who had a very interesting power progression. If we analyze the story from the beginning, we can see that he was completely inept at first, but little by little he refined his abilities, developed new techniques, and became increasingly stronger. Beyond the great talent he was born with, it was precisely his effort and determination that paved the way for his growth, such as when he dedicated about a month to learning how to use the Rasengan. But despite that evolution, by the end of the classic series, there were still certain deficiencies and aspects that needed improvement, such as mastering the toad summoning technique, for example. Notice, during the fight against Gaara, he managed to summon Gamabunta with a bit of luck, since later, against Orochimaru, it became clear that he still hadn't mastered the technique, and even with his solid performance in the battle against Sasuke, though he obviously lost, he was still undoubtedly far from Kage level. At that point in the story, I'd say he was well above the level of an ordinary chunin. Now, moving on to Shippuden, Naruto spent nearly 3 years training with the pervy sage. The moment we first see the results of that training is during the bell test that Kakashi did with him and Sakura. In any case, we can see that Naruto had indeed improved in some areas. He became faster, smarter in combat, and even better at using ninja tools. But honestly, we didn't see anything truly impressive. Many fans consider that training to be a major disappointment, since he didn't showcase any significant new techniques, except of course for having refined the Rasengan by adding more chakra to form the Odama Rasengan. It almost feels like the outcome of that training was more about refining the basic fundamentals of a ninja than an evolution worthy of a disciple of one of the legendary Sannin. And there's a small flaw in that training that I'll comment on later. Next, we reach the phase in which Naruto developed the Rasen Shuriken. This technique not only increased his destructive power compared to the basic Rasengan, but also demonstrated Naruto's ability to take an already powerful technique to another level by combining advanced chakra control with both shape and nature manipulation, adding the wind element. And the major flaw in his training with Jiraiya was precisely the fact that Naruto didn't learn something fundamental: nature transformations. If we look at Sasuke, for example, at just 12 years old, he had already mastered both the fire and lightning elements. Meanwhile, Naruto at 16 didn't even have a clear idea of what nature transformations were. This was probably the biggest mistake in his entire training period, but it wasn't all sunshine and roses, because despite developing the Rasen Shuriken, that technique came with a serious problem. Along with its immense destructive power, every time Naruto used it, his own body suffered the impact of the attack, which also rebounded onto him. It was an enormous power, but extremely dangerous for him at that stage. In other words, the Rasen Shuriken was a weapon of tremendous power that required great caution to use, something Naruto would only be able to master later on with more training. That's why I believe that at this point, Naruto had reached at most the level of a Jonin. Before learning that technique, he couldn't really be considered at that rank, since he didn't even have a solid understanding of what chakra nature transformation was, or how it worked. And I consider it essential for any Jonin to understand that concept, even if they haven't mastered a specific element, like Might Guy, for example. Anyway, it was then that a new training opportunity arose at Mount Myoboku with the sage Fukasaku. This training undoubtedly marked a before and after in Naruto's journey, as he learned to absorb and control natural energy, which enhanced his strength, speed, endurance, and sensory perception. At a certain point, Fukasaku praised Naruto's performance and quick progress, noting remarkable results in his mastery of Senjutsu, and even suggesting that he had the potential to surpass Jiraiya's power in a short time. All that effort was put to the test during the invasion of Konoha. When Naruto appeared on the battlefield to face Pain, he displayed a confident and determined demeanor. despite the overwhelming challenge ahead. And I dare to say that at that moment in the story, Pain was the strongest man in the ninja world. That battle would be Naruto's greatest challenge up to that point, and it clearly illustrates how much he had evolved. When the Asura Path launched its attack, Naruto defeated it in the blink of an eye, showcasing a substantial increase in both strength and speed.
お前などに用はない。あるのは俺だろ!
Another important point was how he used his clones strategically to keep Sage Mode active during battle. Unlike before, when even creating multiple clones didn't make his attacks much more effective, now he could coordinate them with precision, having his clones execute complementary attacks and demonstrating a far more refined technical combat ability. And not only that, he now had the support of the Toads, which allowed him to deliver more precise and powerful physical blows. In addition, thanks to the use of natural energy, Naruto could employ an enhanced version of the Odama Rasengan with much greater energy and destructive power. There's also an important detail. Mastering Sage Mode isn't easy, as it requires a perfect balance between the user's body and mind. As Shikamaru himself said, if Naruto managed to learn Sage Mode, it means he's on another level. In my opinion, this is where Naruto reached Kage level. Remember how before he struggled even to use the Rasen Shuriken? Well, now he had found a way to refine the technique and launch it from a distance without injuring himself. That's yet another point that highlights his progress. Before, he wielded a devastating weapon that harmed both his enemy and himself. Now he possessed an extremely powerful long-range technique.
俺が諦めるの諦めろ螺旋丸
Some argue that it was only later, when Naruto learned to control Kurama's chakra, that he truly reached Kage level, and that point of view is understandable. However, considering how well he performed in the battle against Pain, a Rinnegan user with extremely powerful techniques, it's fair to say that he had already transcended the Jonin level and reached the Kage tier. It's no coincidence that Shikamaru's father and even Tsunade herself trusted him and respected his decision to face the leader of the Akatsuki alone. Even Sasuke, upon meeting Naruto, acknowledged his evolution, admitting that Naruto was now stronger than him, even after Sasuke had awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan, and the outcome of that encounter only reinforced how powerful Naruto had become at that point. Even Kakashi himself, a few chapters earlier, stated that Naruto had already surpassed him, and we all know Kakashi's level as an elite Jonin. Whether one agrees with that statement or not is up to each person. Therefore, it's safe to say that it was at this point, after his training at Mount Myoboku and his battle against Pain, that Naruto truly reached Kage level, not just because of his destructive power, but also because of his maturity, strategy, and mastery of abilities that define someone worthy of that title. Well, we've reached the end of the video. If you liked it, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and also leave a comment to help with engagement. Cheers, and see you next time.